to my channel. I'm Christy, and in today's video, I thought it would be fun to talk about hobbies. So at the end of 2024 / the beginning of 2025, I saw a lot of hobby videos going up on YouTube. And by that I mean I saw a ton of videos that were like 100 hobbies to try in 2025. And I did watch some of those and found them really inspiring, especially because one of my goals for 2025 is to dedicate intentional time for hobbies. I feel like I've gotten a lot better about not scrolling on my phone and not being on my phone a ton, but I really feel like this year I want to carve out dedicated time every day to work on a hobby. I am definitely what I would call a hobbyist. I don't know if that's actually a word, but I just enjoy hobbies in general. I love to learn new things, so I feel like I'm constantly getting that little itch in my brain to try something new. I'm like, it's time to pick up a new skill. I shall now knit. So when I was setting this goal for 2025, I did write on that page in my little journal, I did write a list of hobbies that I already have or hobbies that I would like to get into, new skills I'd like to learn. I thought it'd be fun to share the 10 hobbies that I personally wrote down to try in 2025. I did have some criteria for which hobbies should be on my list personally, but also on this list that I'm sharing with you. I feel like to start a new hobby, the barrier for entry has to be extremely low. I feel like for most of us, we have so much going on in life that we need something that we can kind of just jump into. Something that isn't gonna cost a lot of money, something that isn't gonna require us to go like out and do this, that, and the other, track things down, go to a bunch of classes, things like that. I feel like there's a time and place for that, but I do feel like when you're trying to start something new, or if you wanna try a few different new hobbies, I feel like it's easiest when you can either do it at home or super locally. The cost is basically nothing, so everything on this list is either free or has a very low cost associated with it, I think with one exception, but we'll get into that. And a lot of these also have a lot of resources online that will teach you for free. Before we jump into this list, if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, please do so below. Also sign up for my upcoming newsletter in the description of this video. And let's jump in and talk about 10 easy hobbies for you to try in 2025. Okay. I have my handy dandy notebook here. I wrote down all the things that I wanted to talk about with you guys. So let me open up to the page. I will try to go through these fairly quickly since there are 10, but the first one I have on the list is reading. I think reading is an excellent hobby. I feel like from what I have seen with my friends and also online, I feel like we're all kind of in our reading era, which I really love. I mean, I've always loved to read. I loved to read as a kid. I have set a reading goal every year for the past like probably 5 or 6 years. And I just really love to read. So I highly suggest reading as a habit to pick up in 2025 if you're not already reading regularly. I do have a couple tips for this to make it a little bit more fun, make it a little bit easier on yourself, especially if you are in a reading slump or if you haven't read like diligently in a while. The first tip is to pick what you love to read. I feel like there is a lot of noise out there about like what's popular, like what we should be reading. I always feel like everyone's trying to get me to read nonfiction books, like self-help books, and like honestly, I just like don't care, okay? I don't like them. That's not true. I actually do have a few self-help books and like nonfiction books that I do enjoy, but predominantly I love fiction. I love mysteries, I love thrillers, I love some like modern romance ones. I'm a little picky about that, but I'm pretty much down to read anything in the fiction genre. I will say, not a big fantasy girl. I have not tried to read like any of these like super popular fantasy books. I don't know if that's my speed. I love Harry Potter, but that's like a different thing. I don't know. You'll have to tell me if I should read them. In the comments, please let me know. Actually, yeah, leave any like book recommendations. I actually would love to have some. I'm always looking for an exciting new read. So all this to say, wow, this is gonna take me forever because I'm already on a tangent. All this to say, read what you love. If you love nonfiction books, get all those nonfiction books and just read them one after the other. That is totally fine. I feel like what I try to do to diversify my reading is since I love mysteries and thrillers, I try to rotate what I read. So if I read a mystery thriller, I might read like a fiction drama, and then I'll read another mystery thriller, and then maybe I'll read like a really light, like modern, like romantic comedy kind of book. And I feel like that kind of keeps things interesting to me, but I'm still reading genres that I really enjoy. Another tip that I have is that I really enjoy tracking what I read. So not only do I track my reads in this journal, I also use well, I use 2 apps now. I have been using the Goodreads app for a few years now, and it's fine. I feel like it's not that exciting. I saw someone online using the Fable app, and when I downloaded that, you guys, my little mind was blown. It is the cutest app. I'll show you like the interface here on the screen, but it is so cute. You can keep track of your reading streak of how many days you read in a row. And just like the whole user interface is just really nice and aesthetically pleasing. I have loved using the app, and you can import all of your data from Goodreads over to Fable. So I highly recommend doing it because I actually love that app. So I do think that finding a fun way to track your reading is a great way to stay motivated on your reading journey. The second hobby that I will be working on and recommend to you for 2025 is embroidery. I actually have a few different like crafty type hobbies on here that I think would be super fun to start in 2025, and the first one is embroidery. I actually have already started a little embroidery project, but honestly, I started it when I was pregnant, which means I have not picked that back up in like a year and a half. So I'm gonna have to revisit how to do all of the different knots and stitches and whatever they're called. So I do need to revisit that, but when I was first learning it, it was super fun and it was very relaxing. So that is definitely something that is on my list for 2025. A couple tips for this is that if you want to learn the basics, I highly recommend just running over to Michael's and getting a little embroidery kit. I'll show the one I have and the progress that I've made. There's like not a lot of progress, but there are a ton of these embroidery kits at Michael's. And what I love about it is I think they're like $5 or $10 and you get everything you need. You get all the thread you need, you get the pattern. I don't know if it comes with a hoop. It might come with a hoop, don't quote me on that, but it's very inexpensive and it's like you have everything you need right there. You don't need to put a lot of extra thought into getting all the supplies. And then that way you have one little set kit and then you can work on that and decide if you like it or not. And if you like it, you can keep going. Once you get your first little kit done, if you want to keep going and keep kind of advancing your skills, there are a ton of patterns on Etsy. Obviously you can design your own pattern if you're artistic, which I'm envious of. But yeah, there's like a ton of options online to get cute patterns for embroidery. And this is a craft that I definitely am excited to pick up again in 2025. In a similar vein to embroidery, hobby number 3 is knitting or crocheting. I have been watching so many YouTube videos, you guys, about knitting and crocheting. Like, I don't know what's wrong with me. That is probably like a top priority hobby that I want to start learning in 2025. I cannot for the life of me though decide if I want to do knitting or crocheting. So if you know how to knit or crochet, please leave a comment if you have any like guidance for me on that, because I've watched videos like learning how to knit, learning how to crochet, people sharing their pieces that they've knit, pieces that they've crocheted, and I just like am having the hardest time deciding which one I want to pursue. So obviously I can learn both, but I feel like I need to pick one to start with. So I would love to hear your thoughts on that in the comments if you know how to do either of those. As far as like crafts go, this is another one that is fairly low cost to get started with, especially like, I think like the easiest project is probably like a little baby blanket, like something very simple and straightforward. You don't need that much yarn for something like that. So obviously you can go pick up the supplies that you need, yarn, the knitting needles, the crochet hook, whatever you decide to do. And then there are a ton of YouTube tutorials that will teach you how to knit or crochet, and it's completely free. So I think that's amazing, especially because I think that the beginning supplies won't cost that much. And then you can use all these free resources online. Plus people sell their patterns for different products like hats and scarves and tops. And it's just really nice because it's this little community online where you can buy patterns from each other, and I love that. The next hobby I would recommend for 2025 that I am already actively participating in is playing cozy games on a Nintendo Switch. Now, this is probably the only hobby on this list that is a little bit more expensive, because obviously to participate you need a Nintendo Switch and you also need to have the Nintendo games. If you have a Nintendo Switch or if you're considering buying one, I highly recommend it. I am literally obsessed with my Nintendo Switch. It literally lives in the nightstand next to my side of the bed. I love to play games on my Switch. I have to force myself to do other hobbies sometimes during my hobby time instead of just playing on my Switch because it's just so much fun. Predictably, my favorite game is Animal Crossing. It is such a relaxing, cozy game, very low stakes, no anxiety involved whatsoever. I absolutely love playing it. And it's just so fun to play a game that's just like cozy. It's just cozy and fun. No stress involved. I don't have to shoot anybody, you know? I don't have to fight for my life on my island, you know? I'm just chilling. I'm just fishing. So I love that. There are 2 games that I want to get because they come highly recommended if you like cozy video games, and they are Disney Dreamlight Valley and Stardew Valley. So I would like to get those to try. I've heard really good things about them. I've heard they're super fun and very cozy. So I love gaming on my Switch. If that's something you could be interested in, highly recommend it. The Switch is super portable. You can connect it to your TV. So Barch and I are always connecting it to the TV to play Mario Kart or Just Dance, because that's another favorite of mine. I'm realizing that all the hobbies on this list are very cozy, but you know what? I think that like cozy is kind of my theme for 2025. I just want to live a cozy, cute little life with my family, mind my own business, do my own thing, live my cozy little life. And I feel like these hobbies really align with that. So the fifth one is baking. I have really fallen in love with baking recently. I would say from the end of 2024 until now, I have baked more than I ever have in my life, and I have enjoyed every minute of it. I'm not just baking sweets, even though I do like love to make like a weekly little sweet treat. I do have a bit of a sweet tooth, and we love to have a little sweet with our coffee, especially on the weekends. And honestly, I'd much rather bake it than buy something out, just because I feel like, obviously it's not healthy, but it's healthier, I feel like, than a lot of things that you get out and about. You know exactly what's in it when you make it yourself. So I've made sweets, but also I've gotten into making biscuits. I've made biscuits a few times now at home. I really want to make my own bread. So I have just really enjoyed baking. I've loved every second of it. And again, baking can be as simple as you want it to be. So if you are just getting started with baking, I absolutely recommend starting with like boxed mixes just to kind of get your feet wet and understand the basics of baking, as far as like timing things, knowing how things are done and when they're finished cooking, things like that. And then you can kind of go from there. There are so many free recipes online. I love Sally's Baking Addiction. I'll link her website below. My sister recommended her website to me years ago, and anything I've ever baked from Sally's website has been incredible. So I highly recommend her website. And then my current favorite baking cookbook is Dessert Person by Claire Saffitz. I have loved every single recipe I made from her cookbook. I'll link that below as well. I just feel like baking is weirdly so relaxing. It's like you have something very specific to focus on. You're using your hands, and I don't know, I just really like it. And then you have a delicious end product that you get to share with your family and friends. So highly recommend baking in 2025. Let's get baked. Sorry. Since number 5 was baking, it's only fitting that number 6 is exercise. So one of the hobbies I really want to keep consistent on in 2025 is exercising. So I feel like this can look different for everyone depending on their phase of life, their priorities, their goals. And right now, my main goal with physical fitness and exercise is that I want to, 1, get out of the house and into nature, and 2, I want to move my body in some way every single day. So most days for me, this looks like going on long power walks with Kai. I put Kai in the stroller and we go for a super long power walk. And we do this pretty much every day, weather permitting. Not only have I felt like this has helped my physical health, I feel like this has helped my mental health exponentially. There's just something about getting outside and breathing in the fresh air and being in nature. And honestly, I don't even like play music. We don't listen to a podcast. We just walk in silence and just like listen to nature. I talk to Kai. I like point out everything to him, show him the trees, all of that stuff. And it is just like, I don't know how to explain it. It's kind of like I go for a walk and I feel like, like a weight's been lifted. I feel like there's just something so healing about being in nature, not to sound like a total cheeseball, but I do feel like nature is very healing. And I love going outside, taking a long walk with Kai. It's such a nice part of our day. So even if that is like the bare minimum in your phase of life that you're in, highly recommend getting a long walk in every day. I feel like it will not only do wonders for your physical health, but also your mental health. I'm realizing that all of my hobbies are like artistic, so if that is not your vibe, sorry, might have misled you, because tip number 7 is painting. I have wanted to get into painting for the longest time. I feel very intimidated by the thought of painting. I don't know that I would like consider myself very artistic, like in the visual sense. Like if I sit down to paint something, I feel like I'm not good at like creating the image, if that makes sense. Like I'm not that good at drawing. I'm not that good at like painting, but I do think there are certain styles of painting that I could learn to do well. There are a bunch of different methods on how to learn how to paint. Obviously, like the supplies can be different, like the types of paint you use can be different. But again, a great free resource is YouTube. I've watched so many videos like about learning how to oil paint, you guys. I don't have any oil paints. I think the paints I have are acrylics, and I need to start watching videos about like learning how to do that. And I also need to get better paintbrushes. There's some things I need to get, but Again, I feel like this could also be like a low cost to start, because I feel like just to start, you can either start on paper. You can get a very inexpensive little canvas from Michaels. Honestly, Michaels is where it's at. Michaels is very inexpensive and they constantly have sales. So you could probably get a canvas for like 50% off and it would probably cost you like $5. They also have an assortment of brushes that are fairly inexpensive. And I just think that like when you're starting a hobby, you don't need to get like the best things. You don't need to get the best paintbrushes. You don't need to get the fancy easel to hold your canvas. I feel like we just need to get started. And I'm telling that to myself as well. I'm like, Christy, just get started. Stop watching YouTube videos about it and just do it. That's the vibe, you know? I need to follow that. I actually would recommend watching a few videos about painting, and you know what? I'll actually try to find the one that I watched and link it below, because something that I learned from that video that I already made the mistake of was he was saying that in order to learn color theory, like you only need to start with like 3 colors of paint and like kind of teach yourself how to make different colors out of those 3 base colors. I forget what the base colors were because like, I don't know about art. Were they like red, yellow, and blue? Artists, is that right? Red, yellow, and blue? I don't know. But anyway, YouTube is a great resource. I'll try to link that video below. Hobby number 8, which is actually just like a big goal for me in general in 2025, is to learn another language. Obviously, I'm not expecting to be fluent in another language in 2025. I once saw that like in order to be like fluent in a year, you had to study for like 8 hours a day. And I was like, it's not gonna be me. I wish, but it's just not. So in 2025, my goal is to become conversational in a language. Now, for me personally, I'm torn on what language to work on this year. I feel like I am very drawn to learning Spanish. I feel like Spanish is gonna come a little easier to me. I do know a little bit of French, and I feel like I know more Spanish than I think, but my husband is Turkish, and if I wanted to learn Turkish, I would have someone built in to speak Turkish with every single day, but Turkish is a lot harder than Spanish for English speakers to learn. And I've started learning both languages, and Turkish is definitely harder. So obviously I'm up for the challenge, but am I? Regardless, I think that learning a language is a great way to challenge your brain. So there are a million methods out there. There's a ton of apps. You know, I feel like you can do your research. Again, there's a ton of YouTube videos that talk about different methods, different apps, kind of give their feedback on the best way to approach language learning. So I feel like you can kind of do a little research and see what works best for you. One thing I will say is that down the line, when I feel like I'm ready to get more practice speaking, I'm definitely gonna take advantage of the website italki. I can link it below, but basically you pay for one-on-one lessons with, I mean, I think they're usually native speakers, but you can go through and like, you know, find the teacher you wanna use. And it is so inexpensive. And I feel like that would be huge, because I do think like the final step to learning a language is becoming comfortable speaking the language. That's how you're really gonna progress. So highly recommend that website once you're at that stage of language learning. But yeah, absolutely recommend going on YouTube and doing a little research, because there's a ton of videos out there. Okay, I might have lied earlier when I said that the Nintendo Switch was the only expensive hobby. This next one can be as expensive as you want it to be. So the 9th hobby is film photography. I know some of these film cameras are like $3,000. And if you can afford that, pop off, more power to you. I have a film camera that I got off of eBay for $50. I didn't realize how much film photography would bring me joy until I got this camera off of eBay, and I have just like loved it. I've loved using it. I have loved getting the film developed and my pictures printed. Obviously, like I grew up in the 90s, so like that's what we did. We got the pictures developed and printed. But nowadays, using a phone for all of our pictures, they just kind of live on our phones unless we're like cognizant about printing them out somewhere. And I feel like most of us probably aren't doing that. I did start doing that once Kai was born, and I am a little bit behind on it, I'm realizing. I need to like print more pictures. I have absolutely loved using my film camera. I love it when I'm traveling. I love getting film photos of my travels. I feel like there is just such a fun little rush of getting those pictures developed from a trip. Highly recommend, if you can afford buying a cute little film camera. I think that you can still get them for a decent price on eBay. Like you don't need something fancy, but obviously like if you can afford it, get something fancy. One day I would love to. I would love to get one of the really fancy ones one day. But for now, my little like $50 one is doing just fine. The 10th and final hobby on this list is to start an art journal. So this is a thing I've enjoyed doing for the last few years. I picked this up in 2020 during the pandemic, And I have really enjoyed doing this. It's actually something that I really want to get back into doing more of because I feel like for the last year or so I've really fallen off from it. But I just think it's so fun to put on some like relaxing music and make a collage in my art journal. I feel like this is such a fun way to just kind of have open-ended creativity. Like you can use whatever materials you want. If you have washi tape, if you want to print pictures out, if you want to go with a theme based on your favorite like musician, TV show, a place that you travel to, if you just want to cut pictures out of a magazine, like whatever you want this to be, I feel like it's very open-ended, and so you kind of have free reign to be as creative as you want with it, and it can be as personal as you want it to be. I feel like a good way to get started and kind of get comfortable with doing an art journal is to base it off of like pop culture things. I feel like that makes it fun, like if you have a favorite TV show or a favorite movie, to make like a collage based around that. So I highly recommend that as like your kind of like introduction into doing an art journal if you're feeling a little uninspired, if you like open it and you're like, what the heck kind of collage am I supposed to make? I feel like doing something like that can kind of help get the ball rolling, if you will. Well, that is it, you guys. That is 10 cozy hobbies to start in 2025. I hope these ideas were helpful to you. Like I said, these are all hobbies that I am actively pursuing and participating in 2025. So any tips or insight or recommendations that you want to leave for myself or others, please leave that in the comments below. Let's help each other get some hobbies started this year. I feel like sadly so many of us don't have hobbies anymore, and I don't know if that's just part of adulthood. I don't know if that's just the age we live in with having phones and social media and all of that, but I feel like it's something we'd all benefit from. I feel like hobbies are something that's just for us, like something that we can enjoy and have fun with and be creative with in our downtime. And I just think that that's super important. So I would love to know what hobbies you're pursuing in 2025. Please leave that in the comments below. As always, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for watching my videos, and I'll see you in the next one.